Most people think success begins in the morning. They focus on morning routines, early alarms, and hustling before sunrise. And while those things matter, let me tell you something that most high performers eventually realize, sometimes too late. Success doesn't start when you wake up, it starts the night before. If your evenings are chaotic, your mornings will always feel rushed. If your nights are reactive, your days will always be behind. The truth is, your future is being written in the final 60 minutes before you sleep. I've met thousands of ambitious people who sabotage their own potential without even knowing it, not with bad habits during the day, but with small, overlooked behaviors at night. They stay up late, scrolling through their phones, letting their minds absorb noise they can't control. They fall asleep in cluttered spaces with unresolved thoughts circling in their heads. They go to bed physically tired but mentally restless, and they wake up in a fog, already behind, already chasing, already disconnected from their goals. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt like your mornings are a blur, your focus is scattered, or your energy drops before noon, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you haven't taken ownership of the night before. The most productive people I've ever worked with, the CEOs, the elite athletes, the top entrepreneurs, they don't just have a morning routine, they have a shutdown ritual. And that's what I'm going to teach you in this video. You're going to learn how to end your day with intention, how to calm your mind, reset your focus, and set the next day up for absolute clarity. You'll learn how to eliminate the distractions that follow you into sleep and wake up with an edge that most people will never understand. I'll show you the exact mental framework I use before bed to reduce anxiety, increase confidence, and prime my brain for results. Because once you master the night, you never lose the morning again. Let me take you into a new way of thinking. Not one based on hype or productivity hacks, but grounded in rhythm, reflection, and preparation. Because if your days keep slipping through your fingers, it's not your fault. No one taught you this until now. Have you ever noticed how some days start off wrong before they even begin? You oversleep by 10 minutes. You scramble to find your keys. You skip breakfast, rush through your morning, and already feel behind by 9 a.m. That domino effect didn't begin in the morning. It began the night before when you told yourself, just one more episode, or I'll think about tomorrow. Tomorrow. What seems like a harmless choice ends up costing you momentum, clarity, and confidence. Night after night, it compounds. And slowly, silently, you start falling behind. Not because you aren't trying hard enough, but because you haven't taken control of the final part of your day. This is where most productivity advice fails. Everyone talks about how to win the day, but no one talks about how to close the day. And yet, it's in those final moments before sleep that your brain is most open to suggestion. Your subconscious is listening, your nervous system is either winding down or becoming overstimulated. The last hour of your evening isn't just downtime, it's a handoff. You're handing the baton from today to tomorrow. And if that handoff is sloppy, your next day begins with friction, anxiety, and noise. When I began to understand this, I made a promise to myself. I would stop letting my days end by accident. I would stop falling into sleep like a collapsing building and start entering it like a pilot landing a plan steady, smooth, and prepared for the next flight. That shift changed everything. I began implementing what I now call the evening power ritual, and it became one of the most transformational habits of my life. Here's what it looks like. Every night, about 45 to 60 minutes before bed, I disconnect from devices. No phone, no email, no screens that stimulate or hijack my thoughts. I dim the lights, create a quiet environment, and let my brain know that the workday is over. Then I take 5 to 10 minutes to ask myself 3 questions. What did I accomplish today that moved me forward? What did I learn or notice that I can use tomorrow? What are the top 3 things I must execute first thing in the morning? By writing those answers down, not typing, but actually writing, I'm offloading mental pressure, I'm giving my brain closure, I'm reinforcing progress, I'm priming clarity, and most importantly, I'm reducing that noisy, restless voice that tries to keep you awake with unfinished loops. You've probably experienced that before. Lying in bed with your mind spinning in 100 directions. That's not a sleep issue. That's a lack of closure issue, and it's completely fixable. What this process does is turn the evening into a reset point. No matter how messy the day was, whether you crushed your goals or got knocked down, you don't carry it into tomorrow like baggage. You end it intentionally, and you begin again clean. It's one of the most underrated tools of high performance. Because when you go to bed without mental clutter, you don't just sleep better, you wake up sharper, clearer, and more in control. Let me tell you something I've learned from mentoring top executives and entrepreneurs. The most successful people aren't just those who wake up early. They're the ones who go to bed like professionals. They don't leave loose ends. They don't passively drift into rest. They engineer their nights to recover faster, think better, and rise ready. That's what I want for you, not just to be productive, but to be rested and ready every single day. There's a reason your brain fights you at night. It's not because you're weak or lazy or unmotivated. It's because your mind doesn't like unfinished business. When your day ends without closure, your subconscious stays open for hours, replaying conversations, to-do lists, missed opportunities, and unfinished tasks. That's why you find yourself lying awake at midnight, replaying an awkward interaction or worrying about what you forgot to do. It's not random, it's biological. Your brain is trying to complete what you didn't. And this is where the opportunity lies. If you learn to close your day with structure, even just a few simple rituals, you send a powerful signal to your mind, the work is done. I am safe. I can rest now. That's not just a nice idea. It's neurochemical. You reduce cortisol, you regulate your nervous system, and you enter sleep with a sense of confidence instead of chaos. That changes your sleep quality, your recovery, your mindset, and ultimately your results. Let me share a habit I started years ago that has never left me. Every evening, after I review my wins and tomorrow's top priorities, I write down one sentence. Tomorrow is already prepared. It may sound small, but those 4 words anchor me. They remind me that I'm not waking up into confusion, I'm waking up into a plan. And when you trust your plan, you don't start your day scrambling. You start with command. And command is everything. Most people walk into their mornings like they're entering enemy territory. Rushed, reactive, unsure. But what if you woke up already knowing your first move? What if you didn't have to think about what to do next because last night's version of you already decided it? That's when you go from scattered to strategic, from overwhelmed to aligned. And that's what the best performers do. They prepare their mornings the night before. There's also a psychological gift in this ritual that few people talk about. When you end your day with intention, you begin to develop self-trust. And self-trust is rare. Think about Ithal. Many times have you promised yourself, tomorrow I'll get it together, only to repeat the same loop the next day? Every time that happens, your self-confidence takes a hit. But when you start honoring your nightly routine, even quietly, even imperfectly, your mind starts to believe you again. And that belief spills into everything. Your posture changes, your voice steadies, your decisions sharpen. You start to feel like someone who's ahead of the gamino because you work harder, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. You've created peace, you've created rhythm, and from rhythm comes results. Now let's talk about environment, because your physical space plays a massive role in your mental clarity. If your bedroom is cluttered, your mind will be cluttered. If your workspace bleeds into your rest space, your brain won't know how to shut off. One of the best habits you can build is a simple 5-minute reset ritual for your environment every night. Clean your desk, put things back in place, dim the lights, make your space signal to your brain. The day is complete. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to create friction-free cues that tell your body and mind it's time to slow down. Think of it as programming your success at the subconscious level. Your morning begins with your alarm. But your momentum, that starts with how you closed the previous evening. You'd be surprised how something as simple as clearing a desk, laying out your clothes, or writing tomorrow's top priority can shift your identity. These are the things most people ignore. They seem too small to matter. But when done consistently, they create an environment of excellence. They communicate even when no one is watching. I prepare like a professional. And that's when the results start to change. There's something powerful I began to notice after just a few weeks of ending my nights with intention. I started winning my mornings without needing willpower. I didn't need 3 alarms. I didn't have to drag myself into focus. My body and mind began to move in sync. It was like I had flipped a hidden switch in my life. And what I realized was this: when the night wins, the day obeys. Most people treat night as the afterthought, the leftover time of the day. They use it to zone out, escape, procrastinate. They think the day is already over, so what they do doesn't matter. But that's a lie. Because your night is not just the end of a cycle, it's the start of the next one. What you do tonight determines who shows up tomorrow. Are you sending in your most focused, disciplined selfer, the scattered, tired version who's always playing catch up? I began to notice this not just in myself, but in my clients. People who mastered their nights began to wake up with a different tone in their voice. They spoke slower, thought clearer, moved with more certainty. It wasn't magic, it was preparation. They weren't chasing the day, they were leading it, and it all started the night before. Let me ask you something honestly. How do you feel when you wake up and don't know what your day looks like? No clear priorities, no structure, maybe a few vague to-dos rattling around in your head. You don't feel powerful. You feel vulnerable, disorganized, passive, and it takes you hours to find your groove if you ever do. Now compare that to waking up with a written plan, knowing your top 3 outcomes already visualized, already locked in. The difference isn't small, it's everything. That's why the nighttime routine isn't about discipline, it's about self-respect. It's a way of telling yourself, I matter enough to plan for me. My goals matter enough to prepare the field before I try to plant anything. Because trying to have a high-performance day without preparing for it is like showing up to a championship game with no warm-up, no strategy, and no equipment. It's not brave, it's reckless. And don't think this only applies to entrepreneurs or CEOs. It applies to anyone with ambition. Students, creatives, athletes, parents. The rhythm may change, but the principle is universal. If you want to be consistent in your output, you must be intentional in your setup. There's a reason athletes stretch before a race, musicians tune before a performance, pilots check every system before takeoff, because performance doesn't begin in the spotlight. It begins in the shadows. In preparation, in ritual, that's where excellence is born. And here's the part most people miss. Your routine doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Something that grounds you, resets you, and reconnects you with what matters. Maybe it's reviewing your calendar. Maybe it's reading for 10 minutes. Maybe it's writing down one intention and making your bed. The habit itself matters less than the message it sends. I'm ready. I'm in command. I choose structure over chaos. This is how you slowly, quietly, and powerfully change your life. Not by waiting for motivation, not by hoping tomorrow is different, but by ending today with clarity and letting that clarity compound into confidence. One of the most overlooked truths in productivity is this: your brain doesn't shut off just because you stop working. In fact, the most influential part of your brain, the subconscious, keeps running long after you've closed your laptop or turned off the lights. That's why what you do in the last hour of your day is disproportionately powerful. It's not just the end of your day, it's the programming period for your next one. Most people go to bed with open tabs, mentally and emotionally. Tasks left hanging, conversations unresolved, emotions unprocessed. And what do? They numb. They reach for stimulation screens, social media, noise, anything to avoid thinking. And then they wonder why they wake up anxious, restless, foggy. It's not about the sleep itself. It's about what your mind carried into sleep. This is where the concept of evening momentum becomes a game changer. Evening momentum is what happens when you don't just end the day, you close it intentionally. You shift your brain out of work mode, resolve lingering stressors, and activate recovery. You give your system a clear message. We are safe, we are clear, we are complete. This isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, especially if you want to wake up ready to perform. Let me share a strategy I teach my clients called the 30-10-3-1 method. It's a simple sequence that helps you prepare your body and mind for peak performance the next morning. 30 minutes before bed, no screens. The blue light and stimulation wreck your melatonin production and hijack your thoughts. 10 minutes, journal or reflect. Write down 3 things you accomplished and your top priority for tomorrow. 3 minutes, breathe. Slow your nervous system with deep breathing or quiet reflection. 1 sentence. Affirm your intention. Tomorrow is prepared. I am ready. This simple routine, done consistently, begins to rewire your evening. It lowers anxiety, it strengthens your identity, and most importantly, it creates momentum before the day even begins. Here's what I've seen in myself and the people I mentor. When you build momentum the night before, your morning becomes less about willpower and more about rhythm. You start to move naturally in the direction of your goals. You stop fighting yourself, and the resistance that used to slow you down begins to vanish. Not because life got easier, but because you got more prepared. You also begin to tap into something most people never develop: proactive confidence. This isn't the kind of confidence that waits for results. It's the kind that comes from being prepared. When you wake up knowing you've already decided your first move, your first priority, your focus is already ahead of the game. You don't need to find your energy because you never lost it. You carried it from the night before. And here's the truth. Most people are one decision away from radically improving their performance. That decision isn't waking up earlier, it's ending the day with leadership, taking command of that final hour, protecting it like sacred ground, not letting distractions steal it, not letting exhaustion dictate it, but owning it fully. That one shift creates a ripple effect. It changes your sleep, your mood, your clarity, and your ability to execute. You stop waking up reactive. You stop starting your days in confusion. You begin to feel ahead, composed, capable. And when you feel like that, you make better decisions. You produce better work. You show up as a better version of yourself. It's not just about being productive. It's about becoming someone who moves through life with intention and presence. That begins at night, in silence, in structure, in the rituals. No one sees, but everyone eventually feels. If you really want to know who someone is becoming, don't just look at how they perform during the day. Look at how they treat their nights. Because what you do when no one is watching, that's your real identity in motion. And your identity dictates your standards. Your standards shape your behavior, and your behavior, repeated, becomes your results. It's easy to act disciplined in front of others, to show focus when the cameras are on, when the meeting started, when the expectations are clear. But how do you act when the day is over? When you're tired? When no one is checking on you? That's where your true character reveals itself. Not in performance, but in preparation. Not in applause, but in silence. This is where most people fall short. They think discipline is about doing hard things when it counts. But real discipline is about doing small things when it's quiet. Turning off the television when you said you would. Laying out your plan instead of scrolling one more time. Resisting the chaos of late-night urges and choosing clarity instead. These aren't massive acts, but they're symbolic. They tell your brain, I'm in control now. Not impulse, not distraction, me. This is what builds self-leadership, the ability to direct your own behavior in alignment with who you want to become. And self-leadership is rare. Most people still operate like passengers in their own lives. They wait to feel ready. They wait for motivation. They wait for Monday. But once you start leading your nights, you stop waiting. You begin designing, building, becoming. Let me tell you something that shocked me when I first saw it in myself and others. How you treat your evening is often how you treat your goals. If your nights are messy, reactive, undisciplined, chances are your bigger ambitions are treated the same way. But when you start respecting your time at night, when you structure it, guard it, use it, you begin to see your long-term goals as non-negotiable too. This is why I always say, your evening routine isn't just a strategy, it's a statement. It tells the world, and more importantly, it tells yourself that you are someone who takes your life seriously. Someone who doesn't drift. Someone who doesn't live on accident. And that sense of identity, that internal alignment is what transforms productivity from a grind into a flow. You start to notice your days change. Not because you're working harder, but because you're starting stronger. You're eliminating friction before it begins. You're putting yourself in position to win before the game even starts. That's what professionals do. And if you want professional level results, whether in your business, your health, your focus, your finance asset, begins with adopting professional level habits, quietly, at night. So ask yourself this, who do I become after 9 p.m.? Is that version of me helping the next version, or sabotaging him? Is he preparing the road ahead, or making it harder to walk tomorrow? These are the questions that separate those who want success from those who prepare for it. And no, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to get it right every night. But you do need to care. You need to stop treating your nights like wasted space and start using them as launch pads. Because when your nights align with your goals, your days start to follow and your results become inevitable. There's a reason why so many people feel stuck even when they're working hard. It's not because they're lazy, it's because they're leaking energy in all the wrong places. They end the day depleted, scattered, overstimulated, and they wonder why they wake up uninspired. But here's the truth I've come to realize through decades of studying high performance. You don't lose your edge in the morning, you lose it the night before. The night is when most people surrender control. They've given their best energy to the world all day long, and when it's finally time to turn inward, to recharge, to reset, they collapse. They give the final hours of their day to random noise, passive habits, impulsive decisions. Not because they don't care, but because they never learned to protect that space. They never learned that the decisions you make after dark are the ones that most shape your future. You see, you don't just wake up productive. You decide to become productive the night before. You don't just magically focus. You prepare for focus. You don't become someone who executes with consistency by accident. You build that identity in the quiet moments no one sees. The truth is, every decision you make at night either sets you free or sets a trap for tomorrow. Here's how it plays out. You stay up late, binge watching something that adds nothing to your life. You delay setting your priorities for the next day. You leave your space cluttered. You don't stretch, don't reflect, don't breathe. And you convince yourself, it's fine, I'll deal with it tomorrow. But the version of you that wakes up tomorrow isn't fresh and ready. He's picking up the mess from yesterday, he's paying interest on the debt you left behind, and the worst part? You carry that guilt with you. You know you could have done better. You know that an hour of structure could have given you a day of clarity. And that inner friction, that quiet disappointment, it erodes your confidence slowly. You begin to trust yourself a little less. That's how cycles of procrastination are born. Not in laziness, but in low self-trust. But the opposite is also true. When you end the night strong, when you shut down your tech, when you review your goals, when you mentally walk through tomorrow's first hour, you wake up ahead. You wake up clear. You don't need to find motivation. You don't need to drag yourself out of bed. You move because last night's version of you handed you a clear path. And that gift compounds. Every day you start strong builds belief. That belief creates momentum. And that momentum builds results. This is what I call the loop of leadership. When you lead yourself at night, you empower yourself by morning. You stop needing to be reactive. You stop being owned by your schedule. You become the one who owns it. And people feel that in how you speak, in how you walk into a room, in how you handle challenges. There's a quiet strength that follows those who prepare in silence. Now let's be honest. You will have off nights. You will be tempted. There will be evenings when you feel like quitting early, numbing out, or throwing the routine away. That's normal. But that's also the test. Because those are the nights that matter the most. Not the easy ones, the hard ones. The ones where choosing structure over chaos feels like a battle. But if you can win that battle just 51% of the time, you will change your entire trajectory. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be deliberate. Decide in advance, what will your last 30 minutes of the day look like? What will you no longer tolerate? What rituals will anchor you? Start small, but start now. Because every time you choose structure over chaos at night, you're telling your future, I'm coming for you, and I'm bringing discipline with me. That's how greatness is built. Not in the spotlight, not during performance, but in preparation. In the hours when no one's clapping, in the moments when no one's watching. That's where the next level is born. And the good news? You get another shot at it every night. By now, you understand the truth. Your success doesn't begin with your alarm clock. It doesn't begin with your morning coffee or your first to-do of the day. It begins the night before. It begins when you decide intentionally to stop living reactively, to stop ending your days in noise and distraction, to stop surrendering the final chapter of your day to randomness and regret. Because how you end today shapes who shows up tomorrow. I've worked with thousands of professionals, entrepreneurs, leaders, and high performers. And if there's one pattern I see in all of them, it's this. They don't leave the end of the day to chance. They know the final 60 minutes are sacred, not just for recovery, but for alignment, for clarity, for preparation. They close their day like they would close a critical meeting with precision, with intention, and with calm confidence. That's what I want for you. I want you to become the kind of person who ends the day proud. Not because everything went perfectly, but because you showed up, you took ownership, you planned ahead, you didn't leave tomorrow to luck. You shaped it with tonight's decisions. And when you live that way quietly, consistent, you no longer chase success. You simply prepare so well that success has no choice but to meet you. Let's take it one step deeper. Your night routine isn't just about habits. It's about becoming someone who refuses to drift, someone who doesn't need permission or perfect circumstances to live with clarity, someone who builds momentum while the world sleeps. There's a certain quiet power that comes from knowing, deep down, that you're ahead, not because of talent or luck or even hard work, but because you've out-prepared the noise. That's a different kind of confidence, one that can't be shaken. So here's my invitation to you. Tonight, don't just go to bed, land the plane, finish the day strong, close the loop, prepare the field, clear the clutter externally and internally. Visualize your morning, choose your focus, give your mind permission to rest because tomorrow is already written. That's the shift. When you live like that day after day, night after night, you stop needing to get motivated. You stop searching for hacks. You stop fearing failure because you've trained yourself to win silently. And silent wins create loud results. Success isn't a mystery. It's not magic. It's the result of repeated moments of intentionality. And tonight, when everyone else is winding down in chaos, you'll know better. You'll lead better. You'll rest better. And when the sun rises tomorrow, you'll be ready. Because success didn't start in the morning.